A few months ago, I just bought the Edifier M60 speaker because I heard there are a lot of raving reviews that the speaker is good, and I needed clean and minimalistic look to my table, which I think in a way not a lot of speakers is able to fit in my use case very nicely. So what I discovered is, in terms of dimension wise, it fits in the aesthetic look of my desk. It's small enough, and according to the reviews and stuff I hear online, people have been saying that the sound quality wasn't that bad. Unfortunately, in the cases in Singapore, you don't have a lot of places out there that have test pieces of speakers around for you to audit to try it out. Headphones, earphones, maybe you do have a couple of specialized shops to do that, but for speakers, there are not a lot, especially the ones that is in the middle to lower to the medium tier in terms of price point. Not a lot of places to have it. So far, I have not discovered any one of those. Yeah, so there's a lot of an issue when it comes to like, what if you want to buy budget speakers, like decent ones, for desktop, but there is no place for you to try. Please do not give suggestions like Popular or Challenger and stuff like that. Those shops usually bring in pretty poor quality speakers. In the past, they used to have some decent choices, but I think in recent years, I hardly seen anything that is really good for that. You don't see Edifier, at least I don't see any Edifier M60s around in any of these shops. Having said that, I personally think that after using it for a couple of months, I do think that the M60 is decent, but it's not something that will blow me away, especially coming from my previous speaker, which is the Creative T40s. I believe it was a V2 or that tower one that it's a very old speaker, but I've been using that for years and it's been really impressive when it comes to sound quality. So I wanted something reliable. I wanted something technically can be used as a studio monitor because I do a lot of video editings. So is the M60 good for it? I think for editing wise, it's pretty accurate to a certain extent. So that checks the box. However, when it comes to listening, music listening experience, I think the M60 lacks tremendously. And that also contributes to the point where what kind of connections do I use for the M60? A lot of reviews online were saying that if you use the USB, you technically will use the full potential of these speakers. I think that is true. But in my case here, I don't have the luxury to plug the USB into these speakers because this speakers is not hooked to my PC directly. It's actually hooked to my TV. Due to several convenience setups that I have on my custom in my current rig right now, because my TV acts as an audio source for both PS5 as well as my PC. So in this case, I needed the M60 to also connect it to my TV for this. But how do I actually get better audio out of these things? So it comes to a point where I cannot rely on the 3.5mm single-ended output because the quality sucked and there's also it's a bit of static interference with my cables as well as my setup around my desk area. Then I comes to a conclusion. Is there a DACs out there, or is there any kind of interface that can output USB into this thing? There's not a lot, really, there's not a lot out there. Sure, there are some decent choices from like SMSL, Toppings, or even Shanlings, but I discovered I wanted more. So then comes the Wiim Ultra. I wanted my desk to look as neat and as clean as possible. At the same time, it just encourages more productivity when you have a clean and neat-looking desk. At least that's according to my experience. So with that in mind, I can't, because of the space limitations, I cannot have speakers that are too big. I can only have like those very small bookshelf-sized speakers. So my choices are pretty limited in that sense. At the same time, I needed these speakers to be double as the studio monitors for sound editing and stuff. So previously, I was using such setup. So this is actually my Yamaha AG03 Mark II. Together with my DAC amps, which I was previously using the HIFI Zen DAC V2. It was a perfect combination until the Zen DAC died. So I was in the midst of like searching for the replacement for the Zen DAC, and I'm not sure if like getting the Zen DAC V3 is actually a good choice. And therefore it comes to my case of like, okay, why not try this thing? This is actually the Wiim Ultra. So in my case here, most of my audio output is not actually through my computer, it's actually through my TV. TV is connected to my PS5, which is actually right there, as you can see. Oh, and disclaimer, this thing is not a custom built, I don't know what you call this, platforms or deck. It's just so happened when I actually got this thing, the Wiim Ultra has a dimension that fits in this thing so perfectly. I think it's like fated or something. But there's like some pros and cons to the Wiim Ultra after using it for a couple of days. I'll go into it later, but the main objective for the video is actually to how the hell do you get a better sound quality out of the M60s? Because look, these are decent speakers, and if we're going to trust what online community has been speaking, like using a USB connection actually has a better audio output, let's give it a try. But in my case, like I said, I cannot afford to do so. So let me show you what's actually behind. Yeah, it's a pretty messy setup right here. So yeah, that's my HDMI converter, which I use the optical in to here. Previously, I was using the HDMI ARC into this thing and then output it to my soundbar, which is also over there. But in my case here, I'm not using a soundbar anymore. So that's why you can see here, there is I needed visuals and audios coming out from my PS5 at the same time my PC, which is right over there, and into my accumulated source, which is the TV itself, and output to either only the M60 speakers, or I can choose to change it to a soundbar if I ever wanted to do so. It certainly is not the most typical kind of setup, but due to my situation, I have to go with this. I mean, if you guys have any idea on like how there's a better way to optimize it, do let me know. I mean, in any case, I needed both sources to come in at the same time. I can easily interswitch between PC as well as the PS5. At the same time, I only have one source of output, which is my desktop speakers. So yeah, this is actually my current best case scenario of how I do it. That being said, being an audiophile, I'm still in pursuit of better sound quality, so the M60 really doesn't satisfy me with just a single-ended 3.5 output. And the audio converter isn't exactly known to have a very reliable source of output as well. So what do I have in mind? And this is what I derived. So currently the setup goes something like this. Okay, so this is my overall setup. Let's take a look at the source first. As mentioned, there's two sources coming in, both with visuals and audio. So first is the desktop, my PC, and the second one is my PS5. Both is connected with HDMI, of course, connected into the HDMI switcher so that I can easily switch the source using a remote. Then the HDMI switcher connects to my Samsung TV, which is my monitor, TV, whatever how you call it. It's an Android TV. This is also connected via HDMI. And following that, the Samsung TV outputs via optical, which I am using optical right now, connects to the ARC or EARC converter. Previously, I was using the HDMI from TV into this EARC converter, but there are some issues, so that's why I switched to optical right now. But as and when I do switch around too. According to the official product description of this EARC converter, is that it's able to output up to 24-bit 192 kHz, which I think it did prove true when it comes to the reading on the Wiim Amp inputs. That said, the audio quality is very much debatable. Following that, the HDMI ARC or EARC converter then outputs via RCA into my Wiim Ultra. So as mentioned just now as well, the RCA for some reason gives the best output quality, even compared to using the HDMI output from this EARC converter, which it is able to do so. So this thing is actually pretty incredible. It can output quite a number of options: optical, RCA, 3.5, HDMI. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Then goes to my Wiim Ultra, and then in my Wiim Ultra, in which what I needed to do the most, of course, is to do USB out into my M60, which is the whole point of this video. But at the same time, what I meant by I wanted more is because there are times when I'm using Bluetooth device to listen to this, to whatever thing I'm watching. So I wanted to have a more flexible way of handling Bluetooth, being able to have two ways, Bluetooth, which is able to receive as well as transmit the Bluetooth signals. So then it comes to the point in which I find that the limitations of this Wiim Ultra is that they don't have an LDAC output. So the Bluetooth quality that I get from this device is actually not exactly the best. You can certainly hear a difference there whenever comparing the Wiim Ultra Bluetooth output to my other DAPs, which I'm listening at Bluetooth headphones or earphones too. So yeah, this basically wraps up my entire audio video setup. Currently, the setup has been really quite doing well for me, and I can switch source very easily through a HDMI switcher. In my case here, I can switch just like that, and it turns into my PS5. And in my case, if I switch back to the PC, just use a remote and it turns back into my PC. So it's really very convenient with this setup like this, but that being the case, there's several multiple filters or like devices in between the source to the output itself, and that's usually not the best case. You do want to have the source to be as close as direct to the output as possible in order to have better sound optimizations. But that said, I really cannot help it. So in this case, I can only rely on a decent DACs to really help clean up the sound and to output it into something that I can be satisfied of. So I'm going to give you a bit of a sample between different versions of like, okay, let's try without the Wiim Ultra. Does it actually works without that? Like directly, what if you're going to plug it directly with the HDMI converter into the speaker itself, and versus the one that's with the Wiim Ultra? And why is it that I'm actually using the RCA into the Wiim Ultra and not HDMI into the Wiim Ultra? There's some issues to that. For some reason, I just cannot figure out why is it that the bitrate actually limited whenever I'm using the HDMI. For some reason, the RCA is actually producing the best results so far. So let's take a look. Alright, so we're going to give it a try right now. I just plug in my Singer-Ender 3.5 into here, and it directly goes into the M60. There, somewhere behind this thing. I'm not sure you can see it. But yeah, that's the 3.5mm. In theory, this is actually the most easiest and the most default settings that a lot of people would actually do. In contrast to like having a direct USB from your PCs into the M60s. So let's play. So yes, you can see from the sampling just now earlier, if you're using the ARC input, the bit rate is kind of stuck with 16-bit 48 kilohertz. And I have no idea how to set it above 16-bit or to change it to 24-bit. But when I change it to the RCA option, which is the line, oops, it should be here. Let's play some track a bit first. Yeah, as you can see, immediately it changed to 24-bit 96 kilohertz. I have no idea. I have no idea why is this the case. The device output is from the same damn thing, which is the HDMI ARC extractor or converter, whatever the fuck that is. And in theory, HDMI should provide a higher source of audio, no? Maybe it's because of my HDMI cable or something, but it kind of doesn't make sense because I'm using the same series cables throughout the entire setup here. So yeah, it's pretty puzzling to me, but in any case here, if I really want to get the best quality now, I can only use it in RCA, unfortunately, and it has been proven a point. So RCA into this damn thing, USB into this damn thing, and it works. So that's actually how I do in terms of upgrade the sound quality for the Edifier M60s. Otherwise, you really have no choice. For a lot of people who, you have the easier option, just plug the USB to your computer. Good, that's really good for you. But in this case here, you can't really use this with any kind of standalone DACs, unless you were you were stuck with the single ended 3.5. So that's actually one of my solutions of how I feel that, if you want to get the best sound quality through the USB, and it does make a hell of a difference, as you can see earlier in that as well. All right, so what if you're using the Wiim Ultra to do an RCA to 3.5 mm into the M60s? How does that sound? Does it sound any different? Let's give it a try. So in this case here, I'm gonna use this one hell of a thick ass cable, which is the RCA to my 3.5 single-ended. It's a pretty high quality cable, and I got it for pretty expensive as well. So yeah, I'm not compromising on the quality at all. So let's give it a try to to see how much of a difference it is using this like a 3.5 single-ended compared to the USB option directly from the Wiim Ultra to the M60s. Right, so in conclusion, the M60 with DAC sounded a hell lot better, but when it comes to the output, the different outputs from the Wiim Ultra to the M60, to be honest, I can't really tell that much of a difference, especially when you're reading the frequency wave from the Wiim Ultra on the 3.5 mm versus the USB one. It's about like 5 to 10% difference in that sense. Maybe less than 10% difference in terms of audio quality for that. I do notice that USB wise, it tends to have a little bit more clarity and a little bit more crispiness compared to the 3.5. But maybe it's because of like the cable differences or whatnot, but I think it's very minimum. In any case, what I actually figure out from here is that you definitely can enhance the performance for the M60 by using a external DACs for that. So what starts as my attempt to trying to save budget, you know, trying to buy the decent speaker for my desktop, choosing this Edifier M60s over the Kanto Aura, turns out to be a pretty bad investment, to be honest. Because now in this case, I don't have really very satisfying combinations for DAC or DAC+Amp to the speakers, and it's a pain in the ass to find. You know, I'm very limited in choices of fine DACs that can do output to USB, which is kind of dumb. So in all honesty, if you want to get a decent studio monitors for your desktop, I think Kanto Aura actually is a better choice, especially if you think of long term and you want to upgrade and you want to pair up more stuff. That might be actually a better option. So M60 pairing with Wiim Ultra, it works, but it doesn't work perfectly because each has its own flaw, and to me these flaws are pretty bad. The M60s having very limited inputs kind of suck. The Wiim Ultra having shitty Bluetooth suck. Interface is very questionable. Honestly, for this price point, if you're gonna use this or you needed a streaming device, I would actually prefer to use a DAP to use as a streaming device. And in this case, since I'm using my Wiim Ultra as a DAC, a dedicated DAC for my desktop, right, it doesn't work very well. I would rather invest this money in another DAC that is gonna cost half the price of the Wiim Ultra. Take the remaining amount of money and just pump into a speaker. Which, yeah, I think the Kanto Aura, pair it up with any kind of fucking DAC, it will work wonder. It will work much better than my current situation for sure. If you find this video helpful or if it's meaningful, if you're stuck in the same situation as me, thinking that whether or not the Wiim Ultra is good or the M60 is good, and yeah, I mean, hopefully this video can give you a little bit of sense on some topics that was not really covered by other reviewers out there. Yeah, but feel free to drop me a comment, and if you find it, you know, insightful, give me a thumbs up, give me a follow. Thank you very much. Cheers, and I'll see you guys around. Bye bye.